Hey, and welcome to the Sunday live show here. Welcome. I'm glad that you're with me here. And if you want to get your name in on the chat and start asking questions, I'd also love to hear where you are. People checking in from different parts of North America, maybe even around the world. So when you sign in there and start chatting, let me know exactly where you're at. Well, here we are at the end of the month. We're going to start getting the reports coming in from the different manufacturers on Tuesday and Wednesday about where we are with the number of sales in Canada and North America. And in the first quarter of this year, we've seen some interesting trends. One of them is the fact that some pickup truck sales are down. Now, I just went and drove the new pickup truck from the F-150, the new diesel, and the video is online there. But it's interesting, pickup truck sales are down. Ford is down 14%. Ram pickup truck is down 5%. So it's going to be interesting with the new Ram showing up, and they have heavy discounts on the existing model and the new F-Series if people are maybe waiting for that new diesel. It is coming to market as early as next month in May. Here's some interesting numbers. Now, we hear about the demise of cars all the time, right? So just this week, Ford announced that they are going to be getting rid of most of their passenger cars. So they're going to keep the Ford Mustang, and they're going to keep a Ford Focus-based car, kind of like a crossover vehicle. So we've seen that trend in the industry. You take an existing car, this is a new Ford Focus in this case, and you put some cladding on it and you raise it up. I think that's what we're going to start seeing from Ford. But Ford is getting out of car sales. Chrysler has only 3 cars really that they sell. They have the 300, they have the Dodge Charger, and they have the Challenger. That's it. All of their other cars are gone. General Motors is getting rid of some vehicles, like some very small hatchbacks. But here's the thing. In the first quarter of 2018, the Volkswagen Golf is up almost 36%, and the Chevy Cruze is up 23%. So yeah, they're not all dead. I think what we're going to start to see is some winners and losers. Just like I've talked recently about, there's the Honda Accord and then the Camry and then everybody else when it comes to the mid-size car space. I think the car brands that have that long lead, like Honda and Toyota, when it comes to producing cars, are the ones that are going to have the advantage when it comes to sales for sedans. Oh, Volkswagen's in there as well, but you think about small cars, Toyota Corolla, Honda Civic, Volkswagen Golf, those are the ones that are all going to be continuing on as the domestics seem to be getting out of sedans altogether. All right, so let me know where you are. Type in the chat box where you are. I want to do some shout outs to people across North America and see where you're at. I just want to let you know what I'm doing this week. I am heading out tomorrow morning, heading to Montreal, driving north of Montreal to Mont-Tremblant. We're going to have the G70. That's the Genesis or the Hyundai premium line. The G70 is the Genesis version of the Stinger, basically. The Stinger, by the way, just won Ward's Automotive Best Interiors, one of the best interiors, and it's going to be interesting to drive that. Then the following week, heading off to Europe to drive some Porsches. We're going with Volkswagen, also to Wörthersee, and then to Mossport to do some more driving with Porsches on the track. So stay tuned for all of that. All right, let's get into the questions here. I'm replacing my 2011 BMW 535 with the 2018 530e. While the $7,000 Ontario credit is still available and the dealer has big incentives to move sedans, I can't decide between 36 and 48-month term. You know what it comes down to? How long do you plan on keeping the car? If you're leasing the car, sometimes BMW has a 39-month lease, and they seem to have better options. I don't really think it matters. If you plan on keeping the car for 4 years, get the 4-year lease. And they do have a 39-month lease, which sometimes is a better deal on a monthly basis. All right. Josh says, thoughts on the ATS Coupe 2-liter turbo? Well, if you're a regular viewer of this channel, you know I'm a big fan of the Cadillac ATS. I think it is one of those cars that just unfortunately didn't hook up in the marketplace, but it is a great car to drive. The coupe is great. The coupe that I drove was the ATS V with the beautiful twin turbo 6-cylinder in there. But yeah, the 2-liter turbo is great to drive. Check it out for yourself. There are some killer deals from Cadillac on the ATS. There's some amazing incentives on the car, so give it a shot. And I would encourage you to go in there, be very sharp with your offer on the car, and get a really good lease rate and enjoy the car. All About Vehicles says, update, my father loves his 2019 Ram, so the brand new Ram 1500 Laramie, and his grandmother's put 12,000 kilometers on a 19 Cherokee V6, no problems, and it has broken in just fine. That's good to hear. So I'm glad that you're enjoying your new vehicles. It's interesting, you know, full-size pickup trucks are so important to the North American landscape. And in Canada, disproportionately, we buy more pickup trucks than they even do in the United States. So we're 1/10 the size in Canada, say, of the United States. But our big full-size pickup truck sales are not 1/10 as many. They're more like a 1/6. So it's amazing to see just how important the trucks are. So we've got brand new Ram. At the same time, Ram is going to be selling the existing model alongside it. So sort of on lower trims as a value proposition. And if you've opened your newspaper, listened to the radio, what have you, you see they're giving massive discounts on that existing Ram as people wait for the new one. Then I just drove the F-150 diesel. The review is up, and you can check that out. And then this fall, the Silverado and Sierra are coming. So it's going to be very competitive with full-size truck. Andrew's in Brighton, Ontario. Family just left to go back to Valmore in Quebec. Respectables from Poland. Way to go. All About Vehicles is in Bowmanville. Parth says, thanks for making video on the E92 M3. Great video. I'm glad to hear your opinion on it. It's interesting. I referenced in the video I just put up today about a 2008. So if you haven't seen it yet, there's a video that I put up today about a 2008 BMW E92 M3. What does all that mean? It's the only M3 that was sold with the V8 engine. And is it a collectible car? I'm wondering if this is the same person. I referenced that somebody is asking here on the chat about the E92 and if I think it's going to be a future collectible. And what I said in the last few weeks is it comes down to condition, mileage, is really important and how long you plan on keeping it. So the one that I put up today has only 22,000 kilometers. For a 10-year-old car, 22,000 kilometers, that's about 13,500 miles. So the video's up and the car is absolutely minty, but that's the kind of car you would need to buy and keep and hold on to. The only issue is as you drive it, it might affect you know, the value of it long term. Bosco Hans says, I'm not sure if you've driven the new RDX yet. No, the vehicle launch is taking place the first week of June here in British Columbia on Vancouver Island, driving over to Tofino. All About Vehicles is in Toronto. Gizjing says, saw the article about Bosch has developed a new breakthrough diesel that'll slash emissions. Do you think VW will get back into diesel with this news? Oh, this is very encouraging. So Bosch, who is implicated in this Dieselgate situation, for those that are getting money from the Volkswagen Group for their polluting diesels, are also getting some cash because Bosch was implicated in this as well. But Bosch just this week, they're the company that makes the electronics and the sensors and everything, and basically the fuel management system to make diesels run cleanly, has a claim that they are able now with existing hardware to cut emissions of diesel engines, the harmful nitrous oxide emissions, to 1/10 of what is even legal. So the legal emissions by, I think it's the 2020 target, they're able to drop it down to 1/10 of that. So the question is, why wasn't this released years ago? So companies like the Volkswagen Group, Daimler, BMW have huge investments of diesel in Europe, and they're not going to stop making them. And now that we can get this cleaner diesel technology, I think it's going to be more impactful for Europe than it will in North America. But any chance that you can get a diesel engine that's super clean for tailpipe emissions would be great, because they do have the lowest CO2 emissions outside of going some form of electric. Kanar says, hey, Zach, watching you from Kurdistan, Iraq. Awesome. Keep up the good job, bro. Appreciate that. Thanks for checking in. Zip Bob 1, why don't automakers make hybrid diesel vehicles? They could combine the fuel sipping of diesels at highway speeds, excellent efficiency of hybrids. There was an engineer at the Detroit Auto Show one time. I think it was Detroit Auto Show, one of the big major auto shows in the world. And I was at the Mercedes-Benz booth, and I asked, you know, same thing. You've got the super efficient diesels and you've got the electrification. If you could have a hybrid diesel, wouldn't that be the perfect setup? And they said, yes, that is a goal. So we haven't seen it. I totally agree with you. If you could have, and then you've got double torque. Could you imagine the torque launch you could get from a good powerful diesel and all of that torque from an electric motor? That would be like snap your head back crazy. But yeah, I agree with you. One of the issues they had is when you have a hybrid is switching the diesel on and off. There's vibration, and that's the one issue they were having to get around, is just how efficiently they can get the engine to switch on and off. But now that they have this new 48-volt electrical system that all of the manufacturers in Europe are using, I think that would help solve that problem. Hey, Zach, is Ford discontinuing all sedans except the almighty Mustang? I talked about that at the beginning. If you're just checking in now, that is the big news this week. Ford has announced at their, announcing their numbers this week that they are getting out of the car business. They're going to have Mustang, and they're going to have a Ford Focus-based sort of crossover car-like vehicle, and they're getting out of it altogether. If you're just tuning in now, I mentioned that there's going to be winners still in the car business, and I think it's going to be Honda and Toyota. The Koreans, to a certain extent, along with Volkswagen, and the domestics are kind of also rans with this. They have so few, like basically FCA or Chrysler's out of it already. They have 3 cars they sell. Ford is getting out of it. General Motors is parsing it down, but they still believe there's a place to play for sedans. And one of the reasons that the car manufacturers that are smart will continue to make cars is because if we have a switch to much higher fuel prices, which we've seen over the last little while, especially on the west coast of Canada here, prices have jacked way up. We are going to have a situation where people are looking for alternatives. So are they going to switch away from the almighty SUV over to a hybrid or electric car? Maybe, but I think sedans still play an important role, and brands that have fuel-efficient sedans, like a 4-cylinder Camry or an Accord, if you were to get out of a CR-V or a RAV4, would be good if fuel prices do go up. Durham says, hey, Zach, great show as always. Just found out that my 18 Golf R does not have a windshield washer level indicator. Is that a new trend in the industry? Guys at the dealer were surprised too. Windshield washer lever indicator. I don't know what that means. It means filling it up to a certain level. I just fill it up till it's full. That's what I do. In my car, you can't see it. There's a little flap, and then you start pouring it in, and then when it gets to the top, that's what I do. Is that what you mean? I think so. Respectable. Let me just see here. I've got a 99 Skoda Octavia, 1.9 TDI, great first car. Curious, have you got Skoda cars in North America? No, we do not. We have the Volkswagens. Basically, for those that are not aware, Volkswagen Group has, I think, 11 or 12 brands, Skoda, Seat, and others throughout Europe that we don't get here. But yes, I know the car, but no, we don't get that here. Zip Bob 1, hey Zach, what's the least expensive car that has adaptive cruise with stop and go feature? I believe it is, excuse me, the Honda Civic. That would be my, off the top of my, you'd have to go through all of the different specs of all the different car companies, but off the top of my head, I believe it's the Honda Civic. Hugo Ning says, hey Zach, if the GTI and Golf R both equipped with winter tires, will the Golf R all-wheel drive be much superior than the GTI's front-wheel drive in snow? Well, here's the thing, a quick lesson for you in winter driving. The number one thing you need is good winter tires. So spending the money and buying an excellent pair of winter tires, and there's loads of great brands out there. You've got Blizzak, you've got Toyo has some great winter tires. There's Nokian, there's lots of great brands. Michelin, of course, and it goes on and on and on. That is your number one line of defense driving in winter. Plus, you've got to remember that modern cars have traction control and stability control, which makes a big, big difference. And then you've got the weight over the front wheels and that is definitely going to help. So what the all-wheel drive is going to do for you in the winter is get you going, okay? If you're in deeper snow or what have you, that will get you going. But turning and stopping, all-wheel drive makes zero difference. And there's an old joke that all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive just gets you to the ditch faster. So I have always said a good set of winter tires and the gray matter between your ears is what you need to drive in winter. And I always give this example. The province of Quebec has one thing that we don't have in the rest of the country: mandatory winter tires from the middle of November to the middle of April. So you have to drive on winter tires. And the province of Quebec is also the one province that buys the most inexpensive small and subcompact hatchback cars. Cars like the Honda Fit and the Mazda 3 and those sorts of vehicles. They sell way more of those in Quebec than anywhere else in the country. So they have a lot of snow, they have winter tires that are mandatory, and people in Quebec, even with all the snow they get, can get around. So really buy the car that suits your taste. The Golf R will give you more traction, but it's not going to be a better car in the snow. It's all up here in the tires. I want a GTI, but the worsening winter storms in Ontario make me wonder if I should get. Oh, I just answered that question. Elizabeth Long says, hello, Zach. Elizabeth Long is here every week. Always puts a big smiley face on there. I always say, Elizabeth, welcome to a chat room full of dudes. Nice to have you here. Vince says, hey, Zach, will you be testing the new Genesis G70 anytime soon? You've obviously just tuned in. I mentioned that I'm leaving tomorrow morning, flying to Montreal, heading up to Mont Tremblant, spending time on the track. They're going to have manual transmission G70s. I know that because Patrick Donaldson, the PR guy from Genesis, was on Facebook taking pictures of the car and saying save the manuals. So that's going to be exciting to see. It's going to be a lot of fun. So look for the video. I'll be heading up there this week, so watch for the video. All About Vehicles is back saying, here's a tip. People who want a 17 or 18 Ram 1500, dealers are selling them dirt cheap, like 15,000 incentive. So you can get a well-equipped Ram 1500 for under 40,000 Canadian. I have seen the Ram 1500 at $20,000 off, but it's all the overall cost of ownership. So if you're getting 15 or 20 grand off, well then it's depreciating the vehicle quicker. So when you go to sell it, it's going to affect the price. But if you don't care and you just want a great truck for a low price, that's a good way to go. Mason Lou, with gas prices hitting $1.60 a liter now on the West Coast, interesting looking into a hybrid. I'm a little Honda biased with new Accord Hybrid or new Clarity. Well, there is a review I did of the new Clarity. I got to tell you, I was very impressed with the Clarity and the way it drove. And the technology and the price they're charging for that car is fantastic. So you have 76 kilometers of pure electric range. And then you have the onboard 1.5 liter gas engine to extend that. And it handles very similar to the Accord. It's a good handling car. It's really big. It's got a big trunk. It's just ugly as all get out. So if you can get your head around that, the Clarity probably would be the way to go. So I have no issue with anything about it other than it's got manual seats. There's no power seats. There was one other thing. There's no sunroof and it's ugly. But if you don't mind the look of it, go for it. Sandy says, hey, Zach, love your channel and your reviews. Keep doing what you do. Appreciate that. Rick Byers from Gatineau says, hi, Zach. My wife and I watched the Drive Guy this morning. The Honda Accord Touring seems like a good car. Great review. How do these vehicles stand up to long-term ownership? 15 years or more. Well, if you're gonna go to Vegas and place a bet on the cars that you think are gonna last 15 years in the mid-size space, I think that 90-something% would put their money down on a Honda Accord and a Toyota Camry. And you see that with the sales. I mean, it's not even close. There's Accord and Camry, and then there's everybody else. I told this story last week. We were on the Mazda 6 launch, and the video is up last week. Mazda 6, the best car I say nobody buys, with the new turbocharged engine. And they showed the sales of Accord and Camry, which are in the Canadian market about 15,000 units each. That's 30,000 cars. And then they showed all the other players. Mazda 6 last year, 2,500. So you see just how big the advantage is that they have. Von Grace says, hey, Zach, live in Fredericton. And as you know, we're having a flood right now. Oh, that's terrible. What's the best family crossover SUV you can suggest that's also good for winter? My two options are RAV4 and RVR. I have said many times that I think that the RAV4 is the best all-around crossover vehicle. I think that the CRV is like a bit of a Swiss Army knife. If you are not in a rush and you can wait until the end of the year, the new RAV4 is coming. And I think, here's the thing is the prices of cars have crept up. And when a new model comes in, that gives the car makers an opportunity to move the price up a little bit. But if you can absorb the new, whatever the new difference is going to be for the new RAV4, it's going to be so much more car. Okay, you're going to get the new latest 2.5-liter 4-cylinder that's going to be more efficient. You're going to have an 8-speed automatic versus the 6-speed. You're going to get much better looking exterior, and the number one thing is a better interior. So the RAV4 is a great product. That's another one you would go to Vegas and put your money down and say this thing's going to run for 15 years with very few issues. So this new RAV4 is coming, but the interior is what's held the RAV4 back, and the new one looks so much better. So I would say if you're not in a rush and you can wait until the new RAV4 comes at the end of the year. And if you're motivated by price and you like the RAV4, there's going to be discounts on them just as the new one's arriving. So that's a way to go as well. CCW says, Zach, it's jumped ahead of me here. When Ford and other American brands are out of the sedan game in the future, what will law enforcement use for cruisers? Well, we're already seeing that now, is that Ford is trying to shift the police officers into the Explorer, okay? But that's where Chrysler is doing well with the Charger. The Charger is a better police car. I have a friend of mine who's in charge of the Vancouver Police Department fleet of cars, and they did a test with the Ford Taurus and then the Charger. They had a couple of vehicles, and they have the Explorer as well. And the officers came back and they said they like the Charger because it's just more open in the cabin. They have the big computer that they have there, and the Taurus has a very high center tunnel, and it made it very cramped. So I think this offers Chrysler an opportunity with the Charger and the Chrysler 300 to really just keep making that product. Those vehicles, the Charger actually sells quite well in the United States, and I think they would have a lock on police fleets. So I think that's where they're going to go. Durham says, windshield washer lever indicator follow-up, meaning nothing lights up in the dashboard when the windshield washer is low or empty. Oh, okay, I understand what you're talking about now. Because earlier, if you're just tuning in, Durham says there's no windshield washer level indicator, and I thought that was when you fill it up on the tank. What he's saying is that it doesn't come on. There's not a little indicator. That seems odd to me. Are you sure that it's actually been removed? Maybe the light is out. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know how to answer your question, but other than that, that's what I can think of. Maybe the light is not there. Zippo Bob 1, when is the new Kia Forte coming? I really like the styling, looking like a smaller Stinger. I'm not exactly sure on the timing of that, but it is coming. It has been shown at the different auto shows. Sorry, I can't answer your question. Hey, Zach, what's your opinion on Ford killing their cars? I just talked about that. Mahesh says, love your reviews. Question, what are your expectations of the next gen WRX? I love the current gen, but it's a little too stiff for me. Do you think it'll be a better daily driver? I don't think the WRX is too stiff. Are you thinking about the STI? The STI is yeah, that'll rattle your teeth out, but it's going to go to the new global platform that Subaru has developed. They included it in the Impreza. It's being used now, it's going to be extensively used through the entire Subaru range. So the next WRX will come on that. It's going to be stiffer. So when you have a stiffer platform, it actually allows the suspension to be a little bit softer. We've seen that with other brands, that you have a stiffer platform, allows the suspension to move a little bit more and not be as crashy over bumps, and you still get the great handling. So if you look at just the Impreza and the Crosstrek and how well they handle on that new platform, and then you put in a much bigger engine and make it, you know, much more driver oriented, I think it holds out good things for the WRX, but we'll have to wait and see. There's been no official announcement on that. But I don't think the WRX is a bad daily driver. I mean, having driven it, I thought it was really fun to drive. Eric says, will you have a review of the new Hyundai Kona? Yes, I have it booked in June, first week of June, I believe. Speaking of manuals, what's the most forgiving and easiest car to learn on a manual? I would say a Honda Civic. Honda Civic is, it's just like a putty. The big complaint is that the clutch is just like mush. You just release it. The other way you can go, so Honda Civic has a small 4-cylinder and a really spongy clutch where there's really not a precision point where the clutch uptake is. The other way to go is to a larger engine, like a 6-cylinder that's just turning over, and you have a much harder time stalling it, because even if you just release that clutch ever so slowly without even putting any gas, the car will start rolling on its own. So those are the two ways to go, a vehicle like the Honda Civic or a vehicle with a larger 6-cylinder, but that's becoming harder and harder to find, a 6-cylinder with a manual transmission. It'd have to be an older car probably. What do you think of the Chevy Cruze hatchback diesel? It's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see the trend here over the next few weeks as we see fuel prices have gone up across many parts of North America and here in Canada, is that people are going to start asking questions about more fuel efficient cars. And I think that's probably why this question has come up. Absolutely, I think the Chevy Cruze is a great product. I think and I've said this over and over many, many times, General Motors is doing much more right than they're doing wrong these days. A lot of their new products are very good, and you're seeing that. General Motors sales have shot up over the last couple of years, and they're being rewarded with very good sales. Excuse me, a lot of it comes down to the utility vehicles, just like everybody else. But the Chevy Cruze is a good car, and I'm not sure if you saw it earlier, but Cruze sales in Canada, here it is here. For the first quarter in Canada, Volkswagen Golf sales are up 36%. Chevy Cruze sales are up 23%. So a lot of people agree it's a fine car. All right, so the diesel, the only issue with the diesels from General Motors is that they're not as quiet as they could be, but there's no issue with them at all, and they get pretty incredible fuel economy. So give it a shot and see what you think. Bruno says, what do you think we will get the RS4 Avant from Audi Canada? I don't think so. We haven't had that car now for a long time. So no, I don't think so. Mortaza says, Civic or new Jetta? This is a tough one because the new Jetta is really it's the biggest car in the compact space, okay? So if you're looking for just space and comfort, the Jetta is very, very nice. And they've upgraded the interior. They've given it a sort of a coupe-like look. It's got a huge trunk, a nice back seat, a nice interior, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. But, Honda has that as well. They have Android Auto, and they have a roomy car. So they're both excellent cars. One has a continuously variable transmission. That is the Civic. And the Jetta has an 8-speed automatic. The Honda Civic has a 1.5-liter turbo. The Jetta has a 1.4. Both of them run on regular gas. The torque, I believe, in the Jetta is a little bit stronger. So I would say they're both excellent commuter cars. The Civic does have independent rear suspension, but go back and watch my review of the Jetta that went up a couple of weeks ago. They have sorted out a lot of what a lot of people, me included, would be resistant to have a solid axle in the back instead of an independent rear suspension. So I would say drive them both. They're surprisingly comfortable and smooth, both of them. For quietness, probably the Jetta. Hey, I just want to let you know that if you go to SoundCloud and type in Motormouth Canada, you will find the audio version of these. And basically what I'm doing is taking the audio from these live Q&As and turning them into a podcast. So if you want to download those and listen to them on your phone or in your car, you can listen to my annoying voice for an hour on your phone. So once again, go to SoundCloud and then type in Motormouth Canada to find that. The other thing is, you might be aware that I'm doing what are called Zach's Picks. These are cars that I'm getting a chance to drive, typically older cars, and they are for sale. The one that I did just today, so you go to Motormouth That's my website. And you click on Zach's Picks, and there's the 2008 BMW M3. And this car has only 23,000 kilometers on it. It is absolutely a pristine 10-year-old car. And there's all the pictures of it. It's unbelievable that whoever's owned this car has not driven it. So if you get a chance, go and watch the review. And that's on the channel today. And you can fill out information if you're interested in it, or go to Zach's Picks on motormouth.ca, and you can check that out whenever you get a chance. Okay, back to the questions. Hey Zach, love your videos on Mazda. In the process of getting a Mazda 3 basic Lux package with tech, blind spot tech. Thoughts on if active safety is worth it or not? I'm not a big fan of a lot of the advanced safety features. I'm kind of old school. Blind spot warning, I have it in our own personal car. I don't really pay attention to it because I set my mirrors properly and I know how to drive. The one safety feature that I do think is good, and I would look for a car if I was buying a new one, but this is a used car, so if it's a 2015, get the best possible 2015 Mazda 3 that you can find. If it has some advanced safety features, great. The number one thing I like is the forward collision warning, because we've all done it. We've all been looking down at the radio or grabbing our sunglasses or getting a cup of coffee, and then all of a sudden it's a sea of red lights in front of you. You jam on the brakes and hope you're going to stop in time. But so that forward collision, even if it doesn't have autonomous braking, if it just goes beep, 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 beep and warns you to jam on the brakes, that is one feature I think is fantastic. All of the others I don't really care about. The one that I just hate and I turn off in every car that I get is the lane keep assist, because driving is a compromise. You're always, especially when you're going through curvy places, you're always just sort of straddling the line, or sometimes going over the line if you're going through twisty roads or even driving on the highway, and having it, jerking the wheel back or vibrating, I don't like it at all. So forward collision warning is the one. I don't think it has it on the 2015, except the top trim levels, but check it out for yourself. Paul Ackerman, hey Zach, I live in Delaware, and rumors going around that Mazda is R&D and all-wheel drive Mazda 6. You think it'll be something all manufacturers invest in? Well, Nissan with the Altima has announced that they're going with all-wheel drive, and they're also putting in the variable compression engine in the Altima. So back to the original conversation about sedans and cars and do they have a future? I think there's going to be some winners and some losers. For Nissan, they obviously are putting a lot into the Altima, because in the United States, for example, it's Camry and Accord, but third, and even here in Canada, Altima is in third place, and you have the Koreans, I think, that are just behind that. But yeah, so they're throwing a lot at it. Now they have announced the variable compression engine and all-wheel drive for the Altima. If that, pardon the pun, starts to get traction and people are attracted to that car based on that feature, then the others might start to implement it as well. But they're so far ahead, the Camry and Accord, I don't think so. Here's a perfect example. Subaru has a Legacy with all-wheel drive. And that's the biggest differentiator, is that their sedan has all-wheel drive. And their sales are right next to Mazda with the 6 in Canada, about 2,500 units a year. So it hasn't helped them. I'm not sure if it's going to do anything for the Altima. So Von Grace wrote back, I was mentioning the wait until the new RAV4 comes out. If you're not in a rush, wait for that. Because I think it's going to be, I think that new RAV4 is going to be a game changer because they're not going to smaller turbocharged engines. They're not going to continuously variable transmissions. They're going to actually a larger 4-cylinder, 2.5 liter, or they're staying with that because they have figured out, which a lot of people have figured out, is that a larger engine working not as hard is actually more fuel efficient than a small engine that's working hard all the time. So it's going to be interesting to get a chance to drive that. Basically, it's the Camry driveline in the RAV4. Noman says, hey Zach, this is Noman from Toronto. I really like the Sunday live shows. How are you finding them? Are you still hiring new presenter? How is that experience going? Just wanted to ask. You know what? Hey, you know what I'll say right now? If you think you're great at doing a car review and you think you've got what it takes, take your phone and get someone to hold it for you. Not this way, this way. This way is for Facebook and Instagram. This is for broadcast. So turn it this way, get someone to hold it, stand up in front of your car, do your spiel, get them to hold it or put it on a mount while you're driving along. Doesn't have to be high quality, can be low tech. And go to my website, motormouth.ca, and send me a link and we'll have a look. If you think you got what it takes, go for it. Send it on in. Hey, we have Tech Zed says, hey Zach, love your videos and reviews. Hi from Winnipeg, go Jets, go. It's so great that thankfully in Canada here we have one team that's in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. And I think everybody's going to get behind them and they look good. They look really good. Looks like a fantastic team. Big, mean, fast, good shot. It's going to be good to watch. All right. Vinay R says, I live in a condo and I park my vehicle on the street. Does it make sense to buy a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, the Mitsubishi Outlander? At work, I don't have a place to plug in the car. No. I mean, it's an efficient hybrid when it's not plugged in, but why would you spend all of that extra money? Just buy the 4-cylinder version, which is actually very good, by the way. The 4-cylinder Outlander is just a good all-around car, and they made big improvements the last time they updated it. Now, it is an older product, granted, but that massive jump to get the PHEV, if you don't have an opportunity to plug it in, no, don't buy it. Don't buy any plug-in. Get a good fuel-efficient 4-cylinder. What car are you most looking forward to driving this year? I am going to Germany in 2 weeks, and I'm there with Porsche driving the Carrera GT3. That's what I'm looking forward to driving. People ask me all the time, what's your favorite car? I say my favorite brand is Porsche. Those that watch regularly, you know I'm crazy about Porsche. So I love the brand. And I wouldn't go out, like the GT3 is the car for me. That is the car. It's the perfect balance of rawness and sort of stripped down, and still you could drive it fairly regularly. That would be the car for me, absolutely. If I had the money to buy one, that's what I would buy. A friend of mine in Toronto just picked up a GT3 yesterday. Bastard. Hey Zach, what do you think about the new Genesis G70? Seems like a lot of value for the money for the compact sports sedan segment. Now you're obviously tuning in a little later. I am going tomorrow to Montreal to drive it, so stay tuned for that. Would you rather buy a Regal, the Buick Regal, or the Kia Stinger? Haven't driven the Regal yet, but the Stinger is a damn hard car to beat for the value. Nana says, I'm considering buying a Subaru WRX. I tested it and found it. I could hear every pebble in the wheel well. What are your thoughts on vehicle undercoating for sound reduction? Do not do that. Do not do that. Buy a quieter car. No, I don't think that's a good idea, because you have the risk of putting some undercoating under the car, and moisture getting stuck between the undercoating and the body could potentially lead to rust. We've seen that over the decades, but no, I wouldn't do that. If you really are concerned about it, buy a quieter car. KMA Smythe, I think is how you say the name. Looking at getting an RX 450h F Sport, would you recommend? Well, if you're considering a mid-size utility and you want an eye on fuel economy, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It certainly looks aggressive with the big grille and the F-Sport packaging on it. It's not to my taste. I think Lexus is overdoing it with their styling. It doesn't appeal to me. If it appeals to you, have at it. But I just think all the edgy and the big grills and all that, and that's great. If you love it, go ahead. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It will work flawlessly for years. You'll have zero issues with it. Lexus service is right at the very top. It'll be a great product if you have an eye to fuel economy. If you just like the F-Sport look of the RX, then the gas version is going to be more fun to drive because it's lighter, but the RX 450h is definitely better for gas consumption. Durham says, no in-dash indicator in the Golf R for the anti-windshield washer thing. Mechanic were surprised. I don't know. I'm going to ask my buddy Thomas at Volkswagen about that. It seems kind of odd they wouldn't put that in there. Ryan S. says, I think Ford killing off sedans is a mistake. Wife had a 14 Pathfinder and now we have a 17 Fusion. There is no comparison in the driving dynamics of a crossover versus a car. I can't see going back to a CUV. Well, you know what? I wouldn't totally agree with that. We had a family utility vehicle. We went back to a car, and then we went back to a utility vehicle, and we had that same experience. Went to the car and we're like, oh my God, this is great. The driving dynamics are amazing. And it's all true. But then you go back to an SUV and you're like, oh, I can sit up higher. It's easy for everybody to get in and out of. So don't think that you're ever going to not have a utility again. But I understand. And that's why vehicles like the All-Track from Volkswagen. So you have the Volkswagen Golf or the Sportwagen, just a little higher. So you've got the best of both. It's a crossover in a true sense. Same thing with the Subaru Outback. It's really a station wagon that's been raised up, so you can have a little bit of both. You can have the car-like handling and you can have the utility, and that's why those vehicles were invented. What do you think of the 2018 Nissan Armada? Love the show. Keep up the amazing job. There is nothing wrong with the Armada. The level of fit and finish on the inside, like there's the Infinity version. And if I was going to choose between the Infinity and the Armada, it would be Armada all day long because it is the same product, to be honest with you. They have a slightly more opulent interior. If you get the top of the line Armada, it's, in my opinion, just as nice. The Armada has an old head unit. This is the one area that Nissan and Infinity absolutely have to address. They have to update the head units in their products. All of their vehicles are very old looking, they're slow, their backup cameras, the quality is lackluster in comparison to the rest of the market. They were the ones that invented that around view 360 camera thing. And then you get in it now and you put it in reverse and it's like all blurry. It's old. So that's the one area they need to update. Doesn't matter whether it's the Infinity or the Armada, it has the same system. The other big drawback to the Armada and the Infinity is it sucks gas. That is a big V8 engine. Unlike the Lincoln, which now has the EcoBoost 3.5 liter V6, or the General Motors trucks that have cylinder management, being able to switch off half of the cylinders. So those can be potentially better on fuel. So if you don't care about fuel economy, have at the Armada, but the head unit is definitely a weak spot on all Nissan and Infiniti products. Richard in Toronto says, I heard Ferrari clutches only last around 20,000 kilometers. Is that true? Never owned a Ferrari, never will. But I would have, it's funny because I was picking up a car right next to the Ferrari dealer on Friday, and I have two friends that work there. If I'd known you were going to ask that, I would have asked them. But yeah, I have no idea. That's the end of the market I just don't really follow, to be honest with you. Jamoff99 says, hey Zach, looking at picking up a Chevy Bolt EV, leasing or financing, what's your take? My opinion, electric vehicles, lease them. Just like phones. Every 2 years, or actually every year, there's a new model, a new better, faster, better battery in your phone, better electronics, and you know, the urge is to get a new one when your contract is up every 2 years. And that's going to be the case for electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are a victim of updated technology, better battery pack, better electronics, better everything that goes into making an electric car. So by leasing, you're protecting yourself against depreciation. Now, the car manufacturers know this as well. So they are actually giving very low residual values. I don't know the exact numbers, I'll just pick numbers. So after 4 years, say a Volkswagen Golf is like 50% of its value for residual value. I think with the e-Golf, they're putting it down to 40%. So they're putting that buffer in there because they don't even know how these things are going to hold up in the used market as the years go by. So that's one way of future-proofing depreciation is by leasing. If at the end of that 3 or 4 year lease, the market is strong for used EVs and you have an opportunity to buy it and it's good value, then that basically protects you. Would you recommend a Golf GTI in the latest generation as a first-time buyer starter car? Hell yeah. That's one of the best cars for anybody, never mind a starter car. If you can afford a $30,000, $31,000 GTI, have at it. That's an awesome car. I wish I had that. You know, I had an antique, a classic car as my first car, but my first car I had was a Volkswagen Rabbit. There was, I think the GTI, yeah, the GTI was out there, but yeah, I wish that I had the money to buy that when I was a kid. Jason says, what do you think about the Lexus IS 300F Sport? There is nothing wrong with the Lexus. I get a lot of questions on this car, and I just don't seem to get it. It's an old car now. The IS is old. It's small. I just think that, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It'll do everything you want, except, put big people in the back seat. But you'll start it, you'll drive it, it'll do everything perfectly well. F Sport doesn't mean it's sporty, it just looks sporty. It isn't a particularly fun car to drive, but it is going to do everything for you all day long, year after year. Absolutely, have at it. But fun, no. Mr. Butter Lettuce, I've driven my whole life without any safety tech and have never crashed. Yes, I think that if you have a strong track record of driving well and you know what you're doing, buying a new car and having to pay extra for all the safety features seems like a bit of a stretch. But if the car comes with them anyway, that's great. But yeah, I think it's also an age thing. I know a lot of people that are getting to retirement age and older, they want all this stuff because they know their eyes aren't as good at night, the reaction times aren't as good, and I totally get that. My mother-in-law is in that situation. She just got a Toyota RAV4, and my wife and I pushed her towards it because it comes standard with all of that advanced safety stuff. And for someone that's in her 70s, it made sense. But if you've been driving long enough and you're not at that age, then yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't buy it either. Serge says, hey, Zach, I'm a retired cop. With my experience, most people who hit animals at night never had their high beams on. Why are cars not equipped with automatic high beams? Thanks. Well, Serge, you obviously haven't driven a lot of the brand new cars because part of getting the top safety crash rating in the United States, which is mirrored here in Canada, is by having automatic high beams. Okay, so for example, just speaking about Toyota, they have made their Toyota Safety Sense as standard equipment on almost all of their cars across the lineup. That includes forward collision warning, autonomous braking, lane keep assist, lane departure warning, and automatic high beams. So what we're starting to see now as part of those advanced safety suites is to include automatic high beams. And in order to get the top crash rating, car manufacturers are needing to add that suite of safety features in order to get the top rating. So new cars kind of from 2019 and onward, you're going to see more and more of them with automatic high beams. So that answers your questions. It is coming as standard equipment. Sid Arth says, hey Zach, which luxury compact sedan do you recommend? Acura TL, no. Audi A4, yes. Genesis G70, have to wait. If it's like the Stinger, it'll be a great product. In my opinion, the two best cars in the premium compact luxury space are the Audi A4 and the Mercedes-Benz C-Class. Those are my two favorites. And it's the same also for utility vehicles. My two favorites in the premium utility compact space are the GLC and the Q5, which are basically the SUV versions of those two cars. Haven't driven the G70, as I mentioned. I'm going on Tuesday to drive it, but leaving tomorrow, so stay tuned. Mr. Butter Lettuce says, hydroplaning is why most people rear end or can't stop in time. I think it's inattentiveness too. Yeah, road conditions. Basically it comes to not driving to the conditions of the road. So you see it all the time. You've had a dry spell of weather and somebody is used to driving a certain distance behind the other car, and then you get a sudden rainstorm and they're still driving the same distance, not realizing that the road has got oil all over it and now it's covered with water. Instead of leaving a much bigger space, now you have no braking buffer zone. It's people don't drive to the conditions is one of the biggest issues. Hey Zach, would you recommend the BRZ at a $30,000 Canadian price point for a sporty car, new or used, and auto only? Well, the auto in that particular car does zap the fun factor. So yes, the BRZ is a great car. It's very lightweight and nimble. Other cars I want you to try. If it's all about being a coupe, I really strongly urge you to try the Miata. Now, I know you're going to roll your eyes and say that's a chick car. Trust me, drive it. The MX-5 Miata is one of the best cars ever made, period. Zero. I mean, sorry, not zero. End of sentence, full stop. It is a fantastic car. And it has more bottom end grunt out of the engine versus, you know, the FRS or now the GT86 and the BRZ. So those are wonderful cars. There's no question about it. But it depends if you're driving in city driving. The auto in that car does zap the fun. The other car I want you to drive is for $30,000, basically $31,000 is the base model GTI. Of those, that would be my choice. Andrew H says, Shmee 150 has a Carrera GT3 in Germany. Great videos on high-end sports cars. Yes, isn't that good for him? I'm going to be driving one in Germany in a couple weeks. Hey Zach, been watching you for years. Love your reviews. I currently drive a 2011 Mark 6 GTI. Since gas has just hit $1.60 on the West Coast, I'm thinking about getting an e-Golf. Will I like it? Well, it's not a GTI, but it's a very satisfying car because electric motor gives you all that instant snap at 0 RPM. So the instant torque away from a light is great. At city speeds, it's a very satisfying car to drive. Batteries in the bottom of the car, so the center of gravity is low. You still get the great handling of the Golf. Plus, it's the next generation, so the refinement of the car is generally better from Mark 6 to Mark 7 Golf. The only place it really lacks is passing on the highway. So the torque is great at city speeds. On the highway, you're not going to get that, you know, hit the throttle, drop 2 gears, and away you go on the highway. That's where it kind of falls short for me. But other than that, it is my favorite electric car in the market because it's got the same functionality, it's got the same high-level interior. A lot of electric cars, they cheap out on the interior. Volkswagen was smart. They actually made it one of their premium models. So for that, I like. Richie Rich says, Zach, my friend has bad credit and needs a car badly, but he can't get approved. Interest will be higher with the bad credit lenders, but can you recommend anyone who aren't ripoffs? Companies that offer this off the top of my head, you're going to have to really shop the market on this. But buying a car, and don't buy a new expensive car. Just get an old car that's inexpensive and pay the higher interest rate and absorb that in the cost of the car and keep it short. Like, don't stretch out the payments over a long period of time, because even just doing that month after month regular payment and making the payments, that's job number one, will improve your credit score. And then after that, you're going to be able to qualify for cheaper interest rates and credit. So get a less expensive car, even if you have to pay higher interest, but doing that will establish your credit rating. A car loan is a great way to establish credit because you make those payments every month and you keep the car, but you know, some of these companies are charging extortionate amounts of interest. So by offsetting that, get a cheap car. Mark says, I'm considering a used Acura MDX 15 or 16. Would you recommend newer transmission in 16? No, I think the 6-speed. And here's the other thing. If you're not married to the MDX, unless you get the Touring in the Pilot line, that gets the same transmission as the MDX. All of the others get the 6-speed. That's the one to get. So the answer to your question is get the 15 MDX with the 6-speed or get a new Pilot, nicely equipped, not the Touring, everything below that gets the same 6-speed. Gavin Dak Bang agrees with my points on Lexus styling being too much. They're trying too hard. They have like that Napoleon syndrome. You know, they've got to make up for something. I'm not sure what it is, but I always tease the PR people at Lexus and Toyota. I say, ooh, we're going to the car show and they're going to unveil a new car. I bet you the grill's bigger than last time. Any ideas why Lexus and new Camrys and Avalons got rid of the fog lights? This is a trend we're seeing in the industry, getting rid of fog lights. I don't know why. I have no idea why they're doing that. Because I like the look of having driving lights in the lower spoiler. The new Mazda 6, watch the review. That's one of the things they did. I think for higher end brand, they're trying to make it look more upscale. And I think by not having the driving lights mean sporty, no driving lights mean sort of elegant and sophisticated. That's the only thing I can think of. R100 says a Q50 Red Sport versus a BMW 340. BMW 340. The inline 6-cylinder, the 3.5 liter from BMW that's been out for about 10 or 11 years now, is one of the best engines ever. It's epic. It's just a beautiful engine. So I would say that's the one I would choose. Hey Zach, are you ever going to review a Rolls-Royce, Bentley, or other exotic cars? Don't typically do that. I was at an event recently and I was talking to the guy who runs the Rolls-Royce dealership here, and they said they could get me one, so I should ask. Why not? My kids would like it. That's what I got. Get a Rolls-Royce and take the kids to get ice cream. Just don't spill it on the seats. Ganesh says, hey Zach, what's your opinion about buying a 17 Expedition? I found a new one at an $8,000 discount. So the 17 Expedition is the last of the old ones. I think you could probably get more than an $8,000 discount, to be honest with you. I really do. I think the new one is so much better than the old one that if it's $8,000 difference, if you can afford it, I'd buy the new one. I really would. Or wait, because everyone is going to be buying the new Expedition at full price. And a year from now, there's going to be even incentives on that. So the new one is so much better. And if you're going to buy the old one, I think you can do better than $8,000 off. That should be your starting foray in there. Go in there and offer them even less. Hi Zach, got the 15 Durango and I don't like it. I love it. Oh, good. Did you ever find out where the switch is for the tailgate? Well, you must have watched my review. I felt like an idiot. I was talking about the Durango and I couldn't find the switch for the power tailgate. It's up here. Like most of them, it's down here, it's down here, it's down there, it's here. It's up there on the roof and I couldn't find it. So yes, I felt like a bit of a doofus driving it. I love your line then. Got the 15 Durango and I don't like it. I love it. The Durango is one of my favorites. The Grand Cherokee is one of my favorites. And the Durango is just a longer version of the Grand Cherokee. It's a great product. Now those two products need to be updated. The Grand Cherokee, I just was looking at some pictures on my computer and I found when I went to the Grand Cherokee launch was in 2011. So the current Grand Cherokee, granted they've done some facelifts on it, is 7 years old. So that's really at the very end of its run. So I would expect that a new Grand Cherokee and Durango to be coming. Probably with the new engine technology that they have, like for example, the e-torque that they have in the new Ram 1500 will probably be coming there too. Some guy Zero says, woohoo, I made it. Some people do type underneath once this gets loaded onto YouTube as just a regular video that they missed it. TD says, Zach, what do you think of the A3 e-tron? A dealer is giving me a 10,000 discount from Dallas. The e-tron, this is a plug-in hybrid, but a very short range on just electric, and then it reverts to the gasoline electric system. Plus the A3 is really long in the tooth for that current model. 10 grand off is very intriguing. Do you like the car? How far do you want to drive on electric range? There are more options out there now, but the one thing the A3 has for it, it's got the Audi badge on it, which certainly carries some weight. But hey, see if you can get a better deal than that. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other. I just think the electric range is really not that long before it reverts back to the hybrid system. But like an e-Golf might be better, to be honest with you. I'm not even going to try this name. I'll try the last name. Sparangus says, what would you buy, a C43 or an S5 Sportback? Both of them. That's a tie. The only thing about the Sportback is the back seat is tight. The roof, right? But both of them are great. Like I mentioned earlier, my two favorite cars in the premium compact space are the A4 and the Mercedes-Benz C-Class. So this is basically the S5 is the higher power version, but they're both excellent. So buy the one you like. I have no thoughts one way or the other. I think they're both excellent. Hi Zach, I'm interested to know why you do not recommend the TL. I think the TL was a great car. I think the TSX was a great car. They got rid of them and they came out with the TSX. And it's neither one or the other. It's not good. I just don't like it. I don't like the transmissions for the most part. You drive it and I just don't like it. I mean, I was talking about this the other day. I mean, Acura makes okay vehicles. Their utilities are great, but I think their cars are missing the mark. I mean, what is the compelling reason to get an Acura TLX over the Kia Stinger? I can't think of one. I really can't. Paul says, hi Zach, by chance would you know why VW offers a 6-year warranty in the US and only 4 years in Canada? Well, here's the thing is, in Canada, Volkswagen has offered the 4-year warranty for a long period of time, long before the United States. So they're getting beaten up because they offer a 4-year warranty. Well, nobody was complaining last year that Volkswagen was only offering a 3-year warranty, but it was 4 years in Canada. So, you know, these are separate companies. There are separate countries. You know, nobody says, oh, how come they have a different warranty in Italy or France? I mean, they're separate countries, they're separate markets, they're separate companies. Sure, they all go to Volkswagen, you know, head office, but they are run as separate companies. And Volkswagen in Canada has been generous with their warranty for a long period of time. Here's the other thing. You look at the pricing of the new Jetta, for example. In Canada, the Jetta is actually less expensive, especially when you factor in the currency. So they could offer the 6-year warranty, but the prices would be higher. So I think 4 years for a warranty in Canada is premium brands, okay? You're gonna get a BMW, an Audi, Mercedes, whatever. That's where you get the 4-year warranties. Volkswagen has had that for many years. So I think they're getting beaten up unfairly because of that. But different market. I'd like to know your opinion of the new Accord Turbo versus the V6 Camry and why. Well, this is a tough one. A lot of it comes down to styling. I mean, a lot of people don't like the styling of the Accord. A lot of people don't like the styling of the Camry. When it just comes down to actual interior, I think the Accord's got the Camry on interior, but then the Accord has more features, like you can get heated rear seats and a heated steering wheel. You can't get in the Camry. Guarantee it'll be coming next year because they got beat up on that. But if you're looking at long-term ownership, you've got a 10-speed automatic in the Accord and an 8-speed in the Camry and a normally aspirated V6 versus a turbocharged engine. So the likelihood of something maybe going wrong is definitely tilted in the Accord. The likelihood of something not going wrong is tilted to the Camry. Drive them and see what you think. I think the Accord is a more dynamic car to drive. The Accord V6 is resting on the tried and true. Conventional automatic, sure it's got an 8-speed, but it's a V6. So drive them and see what you like. The styling is so polarizing, both brands. Some people hate the Accord, some people like it. Some people hate the aggressive styling on the new Camry and some people like it. I'm more in the Accord camp for styling and not in the Camry, but I like what they're doing with the Camry because it's proven technology. Hopefully that answered your question. Once again, I just want to let you know that if you want to get this as a podcast, you can go to the website, SoundCloud, and get the audio version of this and play it at your leisure. Listen to my annoying voice for a whole hour. And once again, if you want to go and look up that M3, go to motormouth.ca, click on Zach's Picks, and there's some cars there, including, there's my Audi A7 on the right, you see it? And then there's the BMW M3, the 10-year-old with only 23,000 kilometers on it, and click through all the pictures. So check that out when you get a moment. That's all the time we have for today. Enjoy the rest of what's left of your weekend. I'll speak to you next week before I go to Europe. We'll talk to you then. And keep an eye out for that G70 review coming later this week. Take it easy.